It's the end of E3 for this year.
I haven't either, but
okay.
I saw the same thing, and then
You're gonna say something, I guess, please?
Yeah, like in a Mech Warrior game, when you're actually piloting a mech, you kind of have time to think. This is it's a little more actiony than that.
More arcadey.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I thought of Zone of Commanders when I saw it, but
but one of the more recent games, and again, this is probably 7 years old at this stage, was that they did.
But actually, I was thinking, the Pokeball's what, $50, Pokeball Plus. I guess that's kind of cheapish because it's basically acts as a controller. So I mean, you can do movement with it. They kind of showed it where that little kind of center ball or center circle, like you can move it around like kind of like a stick, so you can move your character around the screen. And obviously, all you have to do is throw it to catch Pokemon. But I mean, and there's some other tech where you can like transfer your Pokemon into the ball, and I don't know if they've actually said like what that does, other than you can kind of hear the sounds from it every once in a while, or if you shake it or something like that. So
it's gonna, from what I've read or heard about when they announced it before, it was gonna work.
it was neat, as you alluded to, the way that they're kind of going to be able to integrate multiple switches together in the gameplay. I thought just the interesting. It was nice to see the game announced in 2018, a bunch of 8, 9, and 10-year-olds in front of a TV screen. It was young adults and 20-somethings having fun with it. So that very much continues a trend that they've been pursuing in their marketing. So I don't really place any significance in it personally. I think that the game is cool. It's cool, but they definitely have trying to continue to push the Switch as like an electronic device and not just like a kiddie toy. But
so you're not going to take it to the coffee shop and link it with somebody else?
I don't drink coffee. That's why I'm tired right now.
Yeah, I had basically the same thoughts that Swiss had. I don't know anybody else who has a Switch right now, excuse me. And I don't have multiple Switches, so I mean that part's cool, but I just kind of like Switch too. Also, again, I've skipped the last couple at least. I think there was one on the Wii U, if I remember correctly. I didn't buy that one. I know there's been some portable ones. I think there was just that one that had like a bunch of mini games from the past
Yep,
games.
The 100 greatest mini games that was this past fall on the 3DS. Yeah, it was.
I'm not a big Nintendo franchise guy. This might, however, be the reason for me to finally get the second Switch unit for the kids. Because the notion of being able to lay them down and create new boards and play in handheld mode might go ahead and warrant that that purchase to let them start to get involved with it.
Hopefully.
You heard it here, folks, gentlemen. He has justified. Well, that's okay.
Emblem, and it looked kind of cool because it looked like you had armies on the board along with the main characters. So that was interesting. We'll see if it's kind of. Do you guys remember Ogre Battle 64?
Yeah, right. You had it. It was.
Start to double up switches for people, or just get a. Would you'd have to use the little cartridges to go between the two of them. So
online saves.
They did announce using Fortnite, which we'll get to. Did discuss how their online chat service would work with the Nintendo Switch.
So I mean, it's running pretty well, and I got to give it to Epic because they obviously. I don't know if this has been in the works. I mean, who knows? Obviously since Fortnite blew up at the end of last year, maybe they started working on it. But I mean, it's a solid game. And then once again, they're doing their own thing with the voice. So I mean, I got to give them a lot of credit that they're what do I want to say? kind of engineering it for the Switch, because obviously it's a little maybe a little different than Xbox and PC and PS4. So I'm having a lot of fun though. I've gotten top 5 a few times, so very proud of that.
Nice. Well, I had heard from my son the other day that he already got a win out of.
We start off with Starlink, Battle of Atlas, I believe it's called. So that's the Ubisoft games with the Toys of Life. Looks pretty cool. It's got Fox in it, so I'm surprised they didn't go into more detail on that though on their stage, with Fox being in there. But it was just part of this video montage.
Yeah, I definitely thought after Miyamoto was up on stage at the Ubisoft debut. So not only it's all blended together, they've kind of made it within the same in-universe aspects. They've given a rationale for why it's a big universe.
The corner of my eye, and I wound up going back and pulling the thread out throughout the week. This has DC comic characters in it. Now those will arrive via updates later.
Really?
Yes, this has Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Joker. So over in China, where this game has a user base of like 80 million daily active players sometimes.
Yep, and it's a
the EA of China essentially, or EA, Activision, and Ubisoft all rolled into one. They decided that for Western audiences, that those Chinese mythological heroes wouldn't translate well. So somehow, and I can't imagine how this deal got put together, but apparently they went to Warner Brothers in DC and got licenses to these DC comic heroes, which, of course, so really supposedly they are the same characters that they were over there. They have just been reskinned. I don't necessarily believe that they've been solely reskinned. I think a little more went into it than that. But this is a potentially big deal as a MOBA. It has something like 80 characters in it, plus these DC characters are being added. So I wouldn't be surprised that this wouldn't become a big deal over here on the Switch.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think if they do crossplay, it suddenly has
mobile, because they haven't done that yet on the Switch. Those have dropped on the other console side though, so I believe that's what this is. Because it threw me off because when it came out on the other consoles and on the PC, it was called the Play Together Edition or something like that, or update. So that's coming on June 21st. June 26th, we have Donkey Kong DLC for Rabbids and Mario, which is the I think it was called Donkey Kong Adventure or Adventures, something like that. Next up, we got PixARK. So I'm going to jump ahead. PixARK, and we have ARK Survival Evolved, which is supposed to come out in 2018. PixARK is more of kind of like blocky characters, but I mean it's pretty much supposed to be the same thing, where you can like build up a camp and you fight dinosaurs, you tame them, stuff like that. I have a feeling though that this PixARK will probably come out this year, and ARK will be pushed back till next year, just because ARK is more realistic graphics and a little bit more intensive. So I'm gonna have to assume that's might get delayed. So we'll see though if that happens. Next up we got, and then both of those 2018, didn't give an exact date. Just Dance 2019, which is what Ubisoft started off with, October 23rd. And Gascles, I believe you have comment on this one.
Yeah, so I think one of the things we haven't mentioned is the remarkable thing about this conference. It stands out that they put release dates. Wondering what that may mean in terms of a marketing agreement or first rights, or what advantages will the Switch get in Just Dance? Will there be any analog, as in Destiny and its relationship with the PlayStation 4, and Call of Duty and Battlefield, as in years past they have sometimes had special preferential treatment or whatever with additional DLC on one console platform or the other.
Yeah, maybe
they've done that, right? They've done that on the Wii U,
which is coming out sometime this year, which is that 2D fighting game, which was like crazy anime, stuff flying everywhere. I'm excited about that because as far as, you got like stuff like Smash is coming, obviously, and there's another one called Brawl. I think that's pretty much all the fighters that I can think of. There might be more.
You get Brawl Out, but there's been two Street Fighter collections, right?
Oh, Street Fighter, yeah.
So yesterday evening it came out. That wasn't announced during the.
Cool. Anybody can pick that up that has Splatoon 2?
I imagine we're going to get it eventually.
Yeah. All right, cool. Next up, July 13th, we've got Toad Treasure Tracker, which was I believe that's a Wii U port.
That's also, I've wanted to play that for a long time. Last year, we actually bought it for the Wii U, and then one of my children that doesn't have proper motor skills or hadn't developed proper motor skills at the time was attempting to take it out of the I don't know, but it snapped the disc. The disc was snapped. So finally have a release date for it. Well,
So it'll be new to somebody or to a lot of somebody's. June 29th, we have Crash Insane Trilogy coming out for the Switch. It's out, I believe, for everything else. Spring 2019, Ninjala, which I believe is how you say that. I can't remember what this was, but I think it looked cool, though, if I remember correctly.
This was a new one I hadn't seen before, but yeah, some type of platformer here. So,
who's the publisher on that?
that's Activision. There could have been an even more surprise deal here, right? With Crash being another platformer character to show up elsewhere in the. Not yet, right? We still got lots.
Hoping that gets resolved in 2019. But yeah, I'm on board. Very excited.
Okay. So, Prime, what else do we have down here in this list as this announcement's ticked through?
See, we got Arc I already talked about. We got Wasteland 2 Director's Cut, fall 2018. Paladins, which is out now, as you can get that now. Fallout Shelter, which is released this week also. And DB, you picked up Paladins, right? Did you get a chance to play it finally?
Yeah, I've been playing it for the last 2 nights. So it really runs smooth, looks pretty good. I do not know.
All right. So next up, we got Dark Souls Remaster coming out sometime this summer. September 7th, we have SNK Heroines, which is all the female fighting game that's coming out. Monster Hunter Ultimate, August 28th. And that's that was a 3DS game originally, right? Okay. Then we got Wolfenstein, or Wolfenstein, however you want to say it. 2, the new Colossus, coming out June 29th.
So I think, and I apologize, you're moving so fast, and I'm always like 1 or 2 titles behind you. But I think, and
at some point, I guess it's June 29th, though, so it probably would have been released already. But I kind of would have liked to play that one first, I guess, because they're kind of all blends together. Next, we got The World Ends With You, which I'm kind of surprised didn't have its own little thing, even though I guess it's a remaster, but fall 2018. Mega Man 11, October 2nd, which actually looks pretty cool. Might have to pick that one up. And then finally, we have Mario Aces, which is coming out June 29th. So we have Mario and Wolfenstein 2 coming out on the same day. Which one will you guys get?
It's not quite the Mario Wolfenstein Assassin's Creed that October 27th was.
First one or not? And I don't think I did, or if I did, maybe I just kind of dabbled in it. And I was like, this is not for me from back when it first released. So I'm kind of excited for this because it's got a lot of characters I've never played. I know some people have been saying, oh, you know what, they should have just done totally brand new game. Well, this is a brand new game, but totally brand new characters and kind of left some of these out. But for me at least, it's exciting to get all these characters. We did get one new character so far, Ridley from Metroid. A big alien winged creature thing. So that's cool. They did say at one point, since there's so many characters that there's not going to be a lot of room for new characters. So obviously we're still going to get some new characters. I'm assuming obviously we get Ridley, but I think Swiss was asking why there's no Crash in Smash Brothers, but hey, it could be announced still. So you never know, but yeah, I'm excited. And it looks like from what they said is that you're going to start off with a small set of characters at first, and then gradually either unlock them or they're just going to release them at some point. So I don't know. I'm glad they're just not like have everything out in the open right away. That's kind of cool.
Well, it releases December 7th, so I imagine there's going to be some direct
make it. I mean, there's no. The only way to make it like a single player campaign is to gamify it yourself and try and unlock everything. It's just a thing that sits on my system and is available. I have it on my 3DS for me to play. So for me, this was, despite the fact that this was one, I felt like them putting a release date on it, and making it firm, and we knew it was coming this year. But I thought that was a big deal. It was one of my big deals of the show. But it wasn't an E3 winner for me, just because, like I said, the inherent nature of the game is it's there's a term that I had earlier today that I can't. It's a collectible, right? But it's not like a It forms a special place for some people, and that's I think it's cool that it's available.
No, yeah, I understand that, but yeah, it's we all have our controller preferences. That was the one that I never got into. But yeah, that's cool. So I'm assuming it's using the Wii U. I had that little like converter thing. It was just USB. I'm assuming.
That's my guess too, right? Is that it? The Wii U one just plugged into the USB and then had 4 ports for GameCube. Yeah, it's Samus Returns. Yep.
I would have much rather preferred to have seen the PC Gamer editorial staff do this show. But I'm just going to go and I'll try and make up a little bit of the time for you, DB, and I'll just run straight down these. So one thing I've noticed, there were 5 Battle Royale games. I can't remember what the host name was. The co-host was Frankie Ward, who I guess is a YouTube personality, gamer personality or whatever. There were 5 Battle Royale games. The host kind of made a remark about that. He was sure that would garner some snark from some gamers, or just noted that, the impact that's having on the industry. I think all 5 of those were demoed there. First game of note that caught my eye was Star Control Origins, which will be released on GOG and Steam. It is a game from Starduck Games, who is known for their master opus 4X space games, in particular the Galactic Civilization series, as well as Sins of the Solar Empire. Sins of the Solar Empire, by the way, the entire package is on sale right now for $20, I think, on GOG at least, maybe Steam as well, with a release date of September 20th, 2018. So this is going to be a huge, meaty game. One thing in particular, they actually had the creative director out on stage, is that it features starship combat that is so intricate that I think that they've broken it out into its own separate module or mode, with online multiplayer and PvP available this fall as well. Was just kind of a sizzle reel from Sega. A lot of games that have classically existed on console that are very popular with some huge fans, they're releasing to PC. So that includes Shenmue 1 and 2, Shining Resonance, Refrain, Yakuza Kiwami, and then later to be released will be Yakuza 0, as well as Valkyria Chronicles 4.
So I think the Valkyrie Chronicles one is great that it was up on the PC.
So it's been out since the 12th. Reviews right now on Steam are mostly positive. If you're to the actual term, mostly positive, if you're familiar with how Steam does reviews and rankings. The show was actually ended with Stormland VR, and I thought this was significant because this is Insomniac, who are also hard at work doing the Spider-Man game that's supposed to release this fall. And this was actually a reveal announcement, world premiere. It's a game where you're a robot. They called it an android. I'm not sure why, but you play as a robot. The head and eyes and the articulation and design is very reminiscent of the character Wall-E from that movie. But something happens to you. You get caught in an EMP or something like that. You wake up. You have a persistently problematic arm that repeatedly falls off. You'll be able to, and basically you wake up and you're supposed to find your way back to wherever. So much like Death Stranding, you spend a lot of time walking the surface of the planet. You will run into other robots who you can revive and repair, and then will join your squad. You also run into bad robots who will not like you. And that what caught me and struck me is it was all this kind of very surreal and kind of emotional stuff, it felt like. And then all of a sudden you were in a first-person shooter. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a different thing that I might actually be really interested in playing. So it is a first-person shooter with some story elements wrapped around it. Again, it's Insomniac. They are great storytellers. So I really actually look forward to this VR experience. The last 2 games to me were. I'm sorry.
Real quick. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No release date for that one, or any kind of release time period. You didn't have it in here, if there was.
If I didn't have it in here and it's not on the release list, it probably no release date was given for that.
No, I think this is the first time that we actually see gameplay of it, right? We knew that they were creating some type of VR game. It is a team within that studio. But I agree, right? As a VR advocate and as an Insomniac fan, I'm really curious to see what they do and how they put their touch on a gaming experience.
Yeah, and they obviously only talked about it in the context of it coming to the PC, but it's Insomniac. They are tightly woven in to the Sony camp, so I would not be surprised to see this also come to PlayStation VR. The last two games I thought were particularly interesting because they are cross-platform games, so they are also coming to Xbox One and PlayStation 4. But they weren't on those show floors, and they were not given release dates, but they were given release dates here. So the first one is a shockingly awesome game, which I'm a little flabbergasted and disappointed that this is not being talked about more. It is a game. It is The Walking Dead, but by Overkill. It is a heavily co-op based, squad oriented, first person shooter that in action looks and feels a little like Left 4 Dead, but it's a little more tactically oriented and a little more mission oriented. I'm not entirely clear. I believe it has a single player campaign. It's not just like mission level sets like Left 4 Dead was. What they showed during gameplay is they showed an objective oriented set piece where you're sneaking up on a camp and looking to take down a rival camp of humans. They have walkers penned up behind a fence, and the guy scopes in with a sniper rifle and shoots the lock off of the fence so that the walkers are released. When they attack the humans, then the four good guys then fan out and start taking down human combatants as well. But like I said, coming to Xbox One and PlayStation 4, release date is November 6th, 2018. I believe that this is going to be one of the sleeper hits of the fall. So if you haven't checked it out, I would recommend that you go take a look at it.
Yeah, I haven't seen video of it, but I've been hearing people talk about it, right? So in the gaming outlets that have had hands-on with it, I've heard nothing but praise for it. And it was something I wasn't even really aware of. But yeah, you're right. I mean, people are comparing it to Left 4 Dead in terms of that aspect, the co-op piece of it. And I think that there's a lot of potential traction for it. So does this take, visually, does it take reference from the TV show or the comic series? And that's a great answer, Gasicles. Next time, why don't you take your mic off mute and try it again?
Yeah. So I feel like it reflects the TV show. It's set near Washington, D.C., and it feels like you're coming out of Arlington, where on the TV show they obviously spent at least, 2 seasons, maybe 3. So yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Did they say if it follows like either the TV show or the comic, or
they have not mentioned anything about like character crossovers or anything like that. So I don't believe you would see any of like the characters from the TV show in it. But
I think in some ways that's to me that's preferable, right? Because then they can, if they're going to tell a story or even little side missions with story in it, they've got more flexibility and they don't have to kind of keep everybody alive for the sake of A&E.
And is that a new developer, or have they been around? Overkill.
So these are the guys. These are the Payday guys, actually.
Oh, okay.
Suddenly, I'm a whole lot more right. I mean, that's a pedigree. I mean, Payday knows Payday 2. Those guys have put together some really solid maps in terms of how to funnel, give multiple outlets, give people multi kind of objectives within a map, and have had some really good net code tied to that. So that's a really solid pedigree there.
Yeah, so I wanted to fact check myself, but confirmed. Yeah, these are the guys who did Payday 2. They are part of the Star Breeze publishing arm. So yeah, these guys know their shooters. They know their competitive shooters.
So let's go into one more developer that really knows their stuff and now has the ability to be on their own to continue to do it. So this was one that was kind of leaked out there, but if it wasn't leaked, like a lot of things in E3, they could have been really big surprises and crowd pleasers. So, final game, Agasicles.
Yeah, so Hitman 2 by IO Interactive, recently having gained their freedom from the whole Eidos family and Square, now out on their own to do Hitman as they would like to do Hitman. Also coming to Xbox One and PlayStation 4, this is not episodic, so this is a full-blown $60 size game. Releases on November 13th, 2018. The thing I found hugely interesting is so they it's kind of like your standard Hitman thing, but it looks a lot more fluid and not as kind of tank control-y like older variants of Hitman did. This one, I think the gameplay demo took place in Miami or somewhere around an IndyCar venue. The race cars on track looked amazing. So actually, one of my big takeaways coming away from it is I would really like to see IO Interactive do a driving sim when they get done with this. But it's standard Hitman 2 stuff, but I think that game has such a huge, it's niche, but it's huge following that I suspect a lot of people will still play this fall. Again, coming out November 13th. Once we get a chance to sit down after E3 and really go through this release date list, that is assuming that this thing is not sandwiched in between, Battlefield, Call of Duty, and whatever the heck else is coming out this holiday season.
So that date would not put it between any of those, because those games are coming out in early October to get out of the way of Red Dead. So Red Dead's coming at the end of October, and so November is a little more open. So that's good news for these games. It also probably hits a different niche than Red Dead in terms of open world type of sandbox to play in.
Was Red Dead in October? I thought it was in November.
I thought it was the end of October, but maybe it's early November.
Okay.
Well, the big problem with November is you've got Fallout 76 releasing on the 14th.
Yep.
Walking Dead releasing right before that, and you also have Pokemon releasing that same week as well.
Oh yeah. Well, sure, it'll be fine.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Prime.
Yeah, I had one question. You at the beginning of your notes here, you said you had 5. There were 5 Battle Royale games. Were those new games or?
Yeah, those are all new games. I did not write them down because I don't care about Battle Royale.
Okay, that's fine. That's fair.
There was one called Maverick's Proving Grounds. That was probably one of the big ones. Young kid working on that is the head of the development studio. He's like 19. And then there were some others. I can look them up for you, but I didn't write them down specifically.
That's all right. I was just wondering.
Okay, gentlemen, we have made it through. We got through all the press conferences. We hit. We had plenty of time to talk about them, and had some good conversation. Right? I think that there's a lot here, but I think I'm going to speak for myself and say that there wasn't a whole lot of surprises in a lot of this. Right? That there were very few things. Some of this is that I said before that a lot of this was leaked from one way or the other, whether it's Canada or it's little tchotchkes with Assassin's Creed keychains and other things, right? Where there were a lot of what could have been really big audience pops with that kind of got spoiled because of the leaks. So I'm really curious. Let's take our direction off the press conferences and do our standard E2KG thing and navel gaze for a little bit here. But so for yourself personally, what are I want to talk about some favorites, some standouts, some things that are exciting to you, and then I want to flip that coin over and say, okay, well, actually, let's start with the disappointments, right? Let's end this podcast on a positive note, but let's start with our disappointments. So what are some disappointments that came out of the show, or whether these are things that didn't show up or things that showed up that really were not meeting your expectations? So Swiss, anything here that kind of left you flat or that you were disappointed not to see?
I think E3 in general, it just felt like 2018 is going to be kind of, I guess a breather year. I don't know. There's some tentpole titles, but none of them, I'm not terribly excited. I guess I can sum it up by saying... So is that
your gaming taste, or is that the industry, right? I mean, is there nothing
It's probably leans my gaming taste. There was no shut up and take my money moment when I was watching E3. So, I mean, there are individual titles that stand out, and I'll discuss them in my faves. But overall, it felt a little bit more subdued. It just felt like everything that, like some of the big stuff that I was looking forward to, is so far down the line as it to be irrelevant. Sony was bad about that. I mean, I understand they got Spider-Man coming out, but their other tentpole stuff, I don't even think they mentioned release dates. And like Ghost of Tsushima was a game that I was really excited about seeing. And for me, everybody was gushing. It's like, oh, it's so beautiful. It's like, well, as Gascally said, every game now is beautiful. Like, you should have nice trees, and the way it should blow in the wind should be nice. I thought that the actual character animations felt stiff and lacked polish. So that either means two things. It means, one, the game is not as far in development as I had hoped, and it's going to be a long time before we see it. Or two, the game is not going to be as smooth gameplay wise as I'd hoped, which would be more alarming. But those were kind of my disappointments. And maybe, like you said, it was just because we knew ahead of time so much that was coming, and we never got the big reveal we wanted.
Okay, so Prime, how about you? Any disappointments, or how many disappointments? Maybe is the better question.
Well, I mean, I guess. Well, for me, just it was Xbox kind of as a whole. They had a lot of good games that they showed. A lot of games, pretty much. That's all they did. But just once again, just because of kind of like the overall feel of E3, it was just kind of like, It was kind of like, okay, that's cool, but I didn't really see anything that jumped out at me that that I wanted to play. Crackdown 3 was probably my like the most thing I wanted to see, and that's not coming out until next year, February next year. So and then the only other thing would be from Nintendo, which I did have a sadness on Nintendo, was no Animal Crossing Switch game announcement of any kind, or even a teaser or something. So I'm not sure if that even exists, or what's going on with Animal Crossing on the console side. So that just kind of bummed me out there, because that's a game series that I really like to play. I'm playing on the mobile, so I follow it all the time. So those are my two hits.
Yeah, I thought Microsoft's press conference was one of my favorites, just in terms of not favorites, but it was one of the most slickly produced, most it was very efficient, and it had a whole lot, but it also didn't have a whole lot of exciting moments there, right? It was a lot of content without any real strong incentive, at least for me, to say, yes, this is going to get somebody to go out and buy an Xbox if they weren't already in that ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, they just kind of think about it, going back and think about it, they probably should have saved Halo for the end, since that's probably never coming out on this console generation, more than likely. I think that might have been, I think that might have been more of an impact if they would have saved it for the end instead of had it at the beginning. So that's just my thought.
Sure. No, that's good. Agasicles, I know you and I have had plenty of disappointments here in this week. Or at least I'm assuming you have, because I have as well. So do you want to talk about what are some of your key disappointments here?
So yeah, I apologize, because I don't know that I've ever disagreed with you guys more on multiple facets. So,
excellent. Let's get at it.
So
E2KG Rumble.
No, you don't have to apologize. I mean,
so I apologize. So first of all, I was mildly distracted, because when Swiss said what he said, I took to scripting out what I predict you guys are all going to be playing month to month from now to the end of the year, of things that were announced at E3. So
okay, no, run this down. I want to know where your projections are here.
So I haven't gotten that far. I've only gotten through August, but I can do June, July, and August. So please take no offense at this, but despite all of the saying that there weren't exciting things announced, my prediction is that this month, maybe spilling into next month, but this month, some of you are going to play Unravel 2. You're going to grab the Life is Strange Captain Spirit thing and play that. Somebody's going to pick up and play DK Adventure. Somebody's going to play Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy on Switch. And somebody is blasted sure going to play Minecraft. Man, I wonder who that might be. So in July, I know that at least 2 of you are going to play Octopath Traveler. Maybe all 3 of you. And in August...
May I rebut that statement?
Yeah, me too.
That's not a new game. We knew about it.
But that doesn't...
He's just saying playing, though.
Right. It is a game that was given a release date at E3.
No, we knew it was coming out. I mean, didn't we?
We didn't know it was coming out August 10th, 2018.
July 13th, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got August 10th.
Okay, so classically,
my point is, I think there are some. And this is a big reason why I wrote things down on paper this year, because I feel, and it's not just us, I feel like people come away from E3 with feelings, and maybe we this is me too, right? Then we say things, but then when we go back and look at data, I don't always feel like the data trues up with our sentiment. Now, that's a plus or minus on us and the industry, right? Because if the industry didn't message something in a way that trues up with the data, then your customer base walks away with a feeling that doesn't match what you were trying to achieve, right, DB, as you said. But I feel like there was a crap ton of things announced in this conference and given firm release dates with many vendors doing a much better job than others. Microsoft release dates. Now, granted, and admittedly, only 3 of their games had release dates in 2018, maybe 4. So there was 5. There were a lot of things that are 2019, admittedly. But I was also really impressed by Microsoft naming the number of studios that they acquire. And some of those studios are very exciting. Yes, we don't see the culmination of that until later. I personally think Halo Infinity is going to be on this generation of console because I think, like I said, despite what rumors are going around, I think those rumors are very premature and have unrealistic expectations based on what we're seeing going on around the rest of the industry. But at any rate, what was your actual original question, TB? Well, letdown.
So I think you make a really good point, and this is something that I've been thinking about as well. Is that I may personally be disappointed about some of what I saw or some of what I didn't see, but I think as a show, I think it was not the exciting, flashy headline show. This was we are through the back half of a generation. We have a good handle on these consoles. We have had things in development for a long time. We still have more things in development. There is this, just sheer fire hose of games coming out, right? And I think that from an industry health standpoint, I think that's a good thing. From like an attention grabber, clickbait headline aspect, I don't know that there was a whole lot there within the show. So this is where my question is right? Is where are, and maybe there weren't any for you, Agasicles, but were there any disappointments coming in from the show where expectations were not met or things there?
Yeah, absolutely. Skull and Bones was a disappointment for me. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous that having delayed that game, having put a release date on it of 2018 last E3, and then coming back and demoing it again this E3, but not putting a release date on it, I felt was absolutely ridiculous. And I think I'll have to double check myself. I think most vendors who came back and were, had games that they had delayed now put release dates on them this E3. There's been a lot of conversation by journalists and some other people saying that they were really impressed by Sony's press conference. And I can't even, a lot of times I say, I see what you're saying and I understand, your perspective. I don't agree with you. I can't understand the perspective of people who were impressed with Sony's press conference. There were, that's a company that with the leading console, and maybe they did it because they didn't have to, but with the leading console, they announced 2 release dates for games, both of which are in 2019. The 4 major games that they said they were going to double down on this conference, they did not state release dates for them. Not even a release date for Spider-Man. Now, again, we know that game's supposed to be coming this year, but again, it's ridiculous to me.
They have a release date for that one, right? It's up and been available for pre-order. It's coming early September. So that release date has been out prior to E3.
Yeah, but
the fact that it's not announced, right? I think I hear your point there, right? Yeah. I think that is, I have lots of issues with Sony's show, right? I think a lot of the people that I've been listening to in the evening have issues with the show. They were very interested in the games, but were very frustrated or disappointed about the show. I think that's one of my disappointments was more about Sony's, not necessarily the show, but their whole array of games that they showed, right? It was very safe, right? Goes back to kind of where everybody's staying in their lane, right? Sony doesn't have to show us a whole lot because they're way out in the lead, right? They're closing in on 80 million consoles that they're just going to say, here are some big name tentpole titles that are coming that you can only get here, and we're going to be relatively pompous about it. And then in Microsoft, they did exactly what they needed to do, right? Their lane was, let's show people that there are a ton of games coming, that we are looking to the future. We are, whether they're name dropping the next console or they're showing that they've heavily invested in first party, acquiring studios so that there's future game development, that, they're clicking all the right boxes. It doesn't make it a flashy conference, but it was effective in terms of what they needed to do. So I think that's, To me, I don't know that that's a disappointment, but it just made it kind of like, okay, well, this is analysts were right. Here we go. Our E3 bingo cards were very easy to fill up. I think one of the disappointments. So I'm going to go just for me personally and say one of the disappointments that is Anthem is so, and this is where I've heard great things about how it plays, but I was looking to find out why I want to play it, right? That they, as a BioWare studio that is been really good about creating engaging narratives and building worlds around it, I don't know that in the last 5 days I've heard anything about who these characters are, why they're on the planet that they're on, why they're battling what they're battling. I've heard a lot about the mechanics of the fighting and how the jetpacks work and how fluid the combos are, and lots of good things about the mechanics, but I haven't heard anything about the world. And so to me,
I thought they covered that in the press conference. Like I felt like one of the things that they did convey was it's this notion that the gods formed the world and then left, and in the wake of their departure, they left a lot of the machines and the automatons behind, that were responsible for terraforming and crafting that world, and those beings are the ones that, left without direction, are constantly reshaping the world and invoking all sorts of chaos and mayhem. And now the only safe haven is Anthem.
Wow, so you got a lot more out of the lore than I did. So excellent, thank you. I guess I will say, from what I remember from that press conference, it was about they talked about players creating their own stories. That there's going to be ways that your experience is going to be your story, which doesn't necessarily. To me, give a larger narrative. But yes, now you've given me a reason for the world existing.
But I could definitely see how that thread could have been lost, though. So I definitely see your perspective on that.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the other things, and I was really glad to see Stormland out on VR, at least having it there, seeing a few things here and there. But one of the pieces I feel like, and maybe this is a topic for another time, but this is something that people have been kind of building toward is, are we hitting that VR ceiling, right? There wasn't a whole lot of big VR announcements. There wasn't any big reveals outside of Stormland. The amount of content there in the VR space definitely seems to have dwindled from the last couple of years. So those are my disappointments, but I'm going to go into some of the things that. So I came into this conference knowing that I was going to be excited about Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man really had to be terrible for me to cancel my pre-order, right? It's Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. So I knew that I was interested in Spider-Man. I knew that I was going to play Destiny 2. I didn't know that it would be a revenge story for a character that has been my podcast cohort for the last year, right? And I was interested in a couple small games like Ooblets, which I knew about as well. But there were a couple games that kind of left me more interested or surprised with and excited about. So I think one of those is Tunic, that came out, the little Fox adventure game, right? That doesn't seem like it's going to be coming out until later in 2019. Tetris Effect on VR, we knew about beforehand. That is, as I've been reading more about it, again, I'm kind of interested from a VR perspective. I think an easy one is, I think I'm interested to hear if anybody else is eager about Cyberpunk. But the two that I want to mention here are Gal Metal. So this is an Xseed Switch game coming out. It's kind of a rhythm game. I don't know that I'm a big fan of the art style in terms of the anime aspects, but it fits right into that kind of Elite Beat Agents rhythm game with either drums or guitars with your Joy-Con. So this was something new and creative I wasn't really aware of, and it's kind of piqued my interest. Another one that I did not think that I would be interested at all, and we've talked about this before, is Starlink, right? I had no time for more Toys to Life, but the idea of a cultivated No Man's Sky with a little bit of sci-fi adventure and Saturday morning cartoon thrown in makes me pretty interested to see at least how that's going to shake out. So those are my things that kind of piqued my interest that I was newly excited about. Prime, anything coming in? You know, I know that you had some games that are already on your radar, but things that kind of spiked in terms of new interest or got you even more excited.
Yeah, there was a few things that kind of surprised me. One was Assassin's Creed. We knew that was coming, Odyssey, but I didn't think I was gonna kind of be into it as much as I was by the end of the presentation for that game. Like I said in the past podcast, it's ancient Greece, so that's very interested in that time period. It just looks, like I said, it looks gorgeous. It looks very graphically unbelievable, and hopefully they'll have, like I said, hopefully they'll have a discovery mode in it so you can kind of just walk around. The one thing I forgot to mention when they're going through the gameplay and just kind of the demo and stuff was how you kind of had these like giant statues and like of different gods and stuff. That just like I was just kind of floored because you see there's the little guy rolling across the pathway or whatever, and there's this huge statue there. I always kind of like that look and that feel when movies do that. There's like a larger than life thing out there. So that there was one, and then Just Cause 4, which is I had no idea. I think you had mentioned that it was rumored possibly, but I never even saw that rumor. So that was a big surprise for me. I'm very excited for that game coming out this month. And then finally, something just today, what I put up on Flock was the Netflix and Telltale mashup here. So Telltale is going to produce or publish a Stranger Things game at some point. I don't know if they give a release date here or not. I don't see one here, but Telltale and Stranger Things, that should go over pretty well. I love Stranger Things. I've watched the last 2 seasons, so I'm very excited about that. But then the other thing too is that they're going to put Minecraft Story Mode on Netflix itself, so you'll be able to use your little I guess whatever device you're playing through as the directional to use directional inputs and stuff like that. So since obviously it's a point and click game, it shouldn't be too difficult, I'm assuming, on a TV. So
I think that is a really interesting aspect there, right? If they can put more of those Telltale games in front of people who are, it's exactly the same type of binge through episodes that Netflix or other streaming services would provide.
So is this going to be a Telltale game in the Unity engine?
I don't know if
it's the existing game, correct? Right? They're just taking it and maybe porting some of the controls aspect to it.
Yeah. It's just the same. It's what was released. I'm assuming it's the first one because there's been 2 seasons. I'm assuming it's the first season that's going to be released. So yeah, so that should be pretty cool. So I did not see that came. That was a story from yesterday that I found on IGN. I didn't even see that, going through my stories. So until just this afternoon. So I just thought that was pretty cool that they were going to bring that out. So, that's pretty much it for me for now, for sake of time. Swiss, anything that jumped out at you?
Yeah. I think I basically did have a point about the disappointments because I am going to probably contradict myself about some things as I go into my faves, but Sony was a disappointment for me. But I guess the first fave, DK Jungle Beat, was mentioned at E3 2018 in the Smash Brothers reel, but the words DK Jungle Beat was mentioned. So, and if you listen to the preview show, I said it would be at E3 2018, so I'm going to claim credit for that.
You got a point.
But as far as the games, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, I think looks, it's 2D, but 2D platformer, and I really liked Rayman. I think I mentioned that in the preview show. I would have thought that would have been fun to have a new Rayman this year. There wasn't one, but those 2D kind of painting-esque platformers are nice, and that game looked gorgeous and it looked like fun. And I'll have to get it on PC because I don't have an Xbox. And Fire Emblem, the Three Houses. I knew a Fire Emblem game was coming. I guess I'm glad that it's coming in the spring. And, I'm going to pick it up. So I'm excited about that. It was enough for me to get excited to play another Fire Emblem game. So, and Death Stranding. I don't really count this as a Sony thing because it's just a Hideo Kojima thing for me. And I know a lot of people are still like, that game's so weird, but I like Hideo Kojima so much. And I can dig the whole point A to point B traversing the landscape aspect. I don't need it to be a hardcore shooter to have fun with it. And, you know, I'm willing to put my faith in that all of the weird stuff that he's showing has a point, some sort of a point. But that, and finally, like Prime, Assassin's Creed Odyssey was a game that I, didn't think I'd be as interested in until I saw it, and starting to embrace the whole new direction that Assassin's Creed is going, and I'm interested in the Peloponnesian War setting.
So one of the things, as I've been reading more about and hearing people's impressions about the Assassin's Creed piece, I agree. I think I'm really interested in it. I love Origins and really love that world. This is building on it. It's also giving me some of the BioWare-y types of things that I'm not necessarily seeing in Anthem. I'm curious, and this is a discussion for another show, right? As I go through the games from E3, I think about what are those games that I want on day one, and what are those that I'm going to wait until 6 months from now, when especially as an Ubisoft game, when it releases all of its content and DLC for $30, right? How long do I wait for that price to come down? But I think that this is a really interesting piece with 400 years beforehand, and some of the rumors out there that we may be seeing. If in Origins we saw the origins of the Assassins, maybe we see the origins of the Templars here as they are starting their quest for power. So, Agasicles. Oh, Prime, what do you have? Some thoughts here on Assassin's Creed?
I was just gonna say, and Socrates will be in the game. If you remember what movie that's from.
So Agasicles, take us home. So what stood out to you? What were some exciting moments or games that have now piqued your interest further than they were as you came into the show a week ago?
Yeah, so my big three moments were the Resident Evil 2 remake reveal, and pegging it with a release date in January of 2019. I thought that was amazing. And like I said, that game, as far as I can tell, is a complete from the ground code up remake. It's not a new skin or new artifacts. I mean, some of the characters look entirely different, or completely modeled differently and mocap differently than the original game. And I also heard today that apparently what has gone on as well is that Capcom has basically contracted out for some of the original members of that team, including the original creative director, to come in and be consultants during the game's development. The other big moment of the conference for me was the Fortnite Available Now reveal. That was like a heart stopper. I was like, you got to be kidding me. That was a big theme this year. The media has coined this term shadow drop for games that were unexpectedly available, right now or within a few days of their announcement that had no previous leak or anything. So that was one of them. And then my top three big moments of the show were Microsoft announcing the number of studios that they bought and who those studios were, even including the new one, not the Coalition, but the
Initiative in Santa Monica.
Bringing in the guy who was the creative director of the Tomb Raider reboot, I thought was very interesting, and basically seating that studio within a stone's throw of Sony Santa Monica and the God of War team. I'm sure some people will be poached and will be lured to cross the lines. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
So what are some things over the course of the week? You talked about how you were trying to whittle down that list. So what are some things that didn't quite make the bubble that we haven't talked about already?
Man, this was tough. So I had 10 moments total, and I whittled down to 3. So the Halo Infinity reveal was one. The Doom Eternal reveal was another, being an entirely new game, no previous knowledge of that, and taking place on Earth. I thought was a really big deal. Bethesda pegging the release date for Fallout 76 as being this November, I thought was a really bold move. The Just Cause 4 reveal, and then the release date being this year. So at least as far as I know, I didn't have any inkling that game was coming, and it looks gorgeous, and it looks like mayhem in a box. Again, the release date for the Division 2, just because I think that's a particularly challenging game, fraught with a lot of angst over the previous release. And the fact that they came out and had that development team lead lay out their entire roadmap that they committed to, and pegging it with a release date just shocked me. I was like, no way they put a release date on this thing. Star League Battle for Atlas with the Star Fox reveal knocked me out of my seat. And then again, also putting a release date on that. And then the Super Smash Brothers announcement that all of the characters are in there and pegging it with a release date. So those were the 7 of mine that didn't make the list for the top 3.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that. I thought that would be a good rundown here as we wrap up our E3 week, right? That's a good recap of some highlights from the week, not only from a Gasicles perspective, but also from a lot of people's perspective here. And the 4 of us, I appreciate how we all had kind of some different highlights and some different disappointments here. As Gasicles said, that it's good for us to disagree, and it brings a variety of voices to the EKG network. And yes, sometimes we all join in and have the warm, fuzzy feelings for a certain game, but we also have some diverse tastes and franchises and genres that we enjoy. And so if you have tuned into us over the course of this week with our E2KG E3 coverage, how about that? Please come back and join us during our regularly scheduled content and our regularly scheduled sessions. We are here every Tuesday and Thursday evening, 9:15 Eastern. Tuesdays are we've got some discussion shows, we've got some playlist shows, we hand out some game assignments for people to dig through their backlog and to break outside those genres. And then on Thursday, we've got our E2KGn30 fastest gaming news. It is 30 minutes running down some headlines from the week and diving into some analysis and some analysis of the impact of some of those news stories. So here on the E2KG network, we appreciate all of the people and the comments that we've had and the engagement and the time that each of our hosts and have spent this week, not only with the podcast, as we've had long 90-minute shows, but also in the prep and the discussions over the course of the week. It's been great, gentlemen. I really appreciate the dialogue and the camaraderie here. And hopefully for those of you watching that you'll come back and join us. There's a lot of dialogue and a lot more to discuss. And as we've said here on tonight, there's a lot of stuff coming this year, right? As Agasicles maps out what we're going to be playing for the next 3 months, let's see how precise that actually is. But one thing I think we can all agree on is there's plenty out there for us to play and for us to talk about. So any other final thoughts for the night, guys? I am thankful for the conversations. So Prime, any closing thoughts?
I just want to know what Gasicles thought we're going to play in August, since he did July.
Paul, I think we're going to give him some time here and let him put the schedule together. So, but I think that that would be an interesting topic, right? Like if we could pick each other what game we think based off coming out of E3 is going to be when we come to the end of the year, what's going to be on our top list based on what we know of our genre and preferences. So Swiss, any final closing thoughts here from you?
Nope. I'm just glad it's over.
I bet you're not the only one. Agasicles, any final thoughts, sir?
No, none.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. And from all of us out here to all of you watching and listening, this is the E2KG network, and we will always keep striving to be enough to keep you going and enough to keep you gaming. Good night.